Okay, here is my first lesson about Henry VIII and his early years. He was born in 1491 and he died in 1547. And when I ask my students about this king, what they usually say is, well, two things. He was fat and he had six wives. Now, in this first video, I'm going to talk about the first issue. He was fat. Well, he was fat in his later years, but he was fat because of quite unusual reasons. You see, in the beginning, when he was young, Henry was quite an athletic and strong young man, and he was very sporty. He loved sports, tennis, for example, and hunting and dancing. Here we have him hunting, and the problem with hunting for Henry is that he was on a horse and you can fall off horses, and he did so quite a few times. So he had accidents while hunting. Another sport he liked very much, also on horses, was jousting. This is jousting, a very violent sport, you can imagine. And he fell off, and he had one very severe accident while jousting. Once he was hit, fell off his horse, and the horse in full armor fell over him, breaking both his legs, possibly giving him spinal damage. He hit his head. He could not talk for 2 hours after the accident. As a consequence of all these falls and accidents, he simply could not be so athletic anymore. And while he was not doing any sport anymore, he continued to do the other thing a king must do, which is holding banquets. Now, a banquet is a very important thing if you're a king, because you have to invite and entertain guests from other countries. And diplomacy is something that happens usually at the table. Think about all the symbolism involved during a banquet, the order in which the food is served, the amount, the quantity of food, the quality of the food, symbolizing how powerful a king you are. So, eating, the diet he had almost on a daily basis, we know that he loved meat and pastries, basically protein and sugar, was a very unhealthy diet if you don't do any physical activity, which he stopped because of his injuries. So that's when he started to become fat. His legs were in terrible condition. You can see in this picture, for example, he's wearing a garter around his left leg. It was a kind of a temporary solution for varicose veins, which were beginning to be a problem for Henry. What else do we know? Well, yes, he continued to eat, and this was the consequence of his diet. But another thing we know about Henry, and that you should know too, is that he was a true Renaissance prince. And this is a better picture of him, I think. I prefer him here. He is still young. This is pretty much at the time he married his second wife, Anne Boleyn. He's holding a piece of paper in his hands which says, "Go and preach the gospel to all the world." He was a Renaissance prince. What does this mean? Well, he was a patron of the arts. This means he employed individuals such as the famous Hans Holbein, a painter. He owned illuminated manuscripts. He had a fine collection of expensive tapestries. He wrote music. He is known to have written music during his time as king, and he kept musicians at his court. He also liked to compete with Francis I of France in the field of architecture, expanding buildings that he owned, such as Hampton Court. Henry enjoyed book learning. He was a rather studious individual. He was probably fluent in French, Latin, maybe Italian as well. And for a time, he was devoted to the Pope and the Catholic Church of Rome. And he even wrote a document in Latin condemning Martin Luther. The document was called Assertio Septem Sacramentorum. You can find it on eBay, on Amazon, which is the defense of the seven sacraments. And this earned Henry the title of Defensor Fidei, or Defender of the Faith, from the Pope. We will see in our second episode what happened after this.